Okay, let's continue. There are two main branches in economics, and they are known as micro and macroeconomics. And they have again some subdisciplines as well, but it's not so important for now. So microeconomics studies individual decision making, like the behavior of households or firms. So micro basically means the small entity. But it also studies the interaction through different kinds of markets. And again, those are individual markets. Those are not the sum of all markets that we have in an economy. So for example, we may find that in the market for bicycles, that this is a perfectly competitive market, but the market for maybe a big electricity company, that may be a monopoly where we have only one supplier, and maybe there's another market which we characterize by what we call monopolistic competition, maybe like the airline industry where we have a few major players, but they compete with each other, but they also have a characteristic of a monopoly. So that is what what microeconomics is concerned with. And microeconomics is also known as supply side economics or long run economics. Why is it called supply side economics? Microeconomists, they are very much concerned with the supply side of an economy. So the supply side of an economy that is concerned with all the resources that we have, and then how do those resources, how are they allocated? Are they allocated through markets that are very competitive or markets that are not so competitive? And it is also called the long run economics because what matters for economies in the long run is the supply side. If an economy wants to grow, then we need to have more capital, we need to have more people, we need to have higher productivities, but those are all things that originate on the supply side. It depends on the resources that we have, but also the market structures that we have. And that's why microeconomics is also known as long-run economics. So now, the other branch is macroeconomics. And macroeconomics studies the economy in its entirety. And what macroeconomists do, they pretend that all the entities within an economy, so all the firms and all the households and all the governmental entities, they can be lumped together into single entities. And then we work with something like aggregate demand. But aggregate demand is not like in microeconomics studying the demand of an individual student at a university, but it treats all existing consumers as one. And that is aggregate demand. And similarly, macroeconomists, they lump together all the entities on the supply side. So everyone who produces something, whether it's a bicycle or an aircraft, they are considered to be part of aggregate supply. And sometimes you may find in a textbook the distinction between microeconomics and macroeconomics, as the distinction between micro is the study of the trees and macro is the study of the forests or the woods. So macroeconomists, they are typically concerned with very specific issues within an economy, and those macroeconomic issues, they are unemployment, inflation, business cycles, national debt, balance of payments, and closely related to that maybe exchange rates. In macroeconomics, it's also known as demand side or short run economics. And why is it called demand side economics? Because very often an economy will face a recession or a temporary downturn, and then one of the main findings of macroeconomists is that then the government can step in order to stabilize aggregate demand. So when there is, let's say, a recession and a lot of people lose their jobs, then aggregate demand will fall, but then the government can step in and stabilize that loss of aggregate demand through either fiscal policy, more spending, or maybe through monetary policy in order to encourage more investment. So in sum, micro is concerned with the study of the behavior of individual economic units, be it the household or a firm, and individual market and market structures, like basically the difference between competitive markets and not so competitive markets. Macroeconomics, on the other side, is concerned with lumping together all entities within an economy that demand something, and once we have done so, we treat aggregate demand as if it were just one economic actor. We do the same on the supply side, and typical fields of study are unemployment, inflation, business cycles, national debt, balance of payments, or things that concern the economy in its entirety. Alright, so I hope that makes the difference clear between micro and macro.